Hi, I'm Jen from Biodiversity Units UK, and today I thought I'd take you through the Biodiversity Gain Plan template. So this is a document that developers need to submit to their LPA or the main document to show how they're meeting their 10% net gain and summarise how that's been approached. So I'll briefly explain kind of what each section covers. I'll highlight any questions that need a little bit more explanation. And so we'll just walk through it. So sections 1 to 3, these are the easiest and very straightforward. So section 1, submission details. All this can be obtained from your planning application. So you just want to make sure that all this matches the information within your application. We've then got developer details. So again, this will come from there. And then section 3 is the responsible person. So that's who's actually completing this document on your behalf. So just the simple details and sign and date there. Then section 4 is where we start to get into the more nitty gritty, I suppose. So this section will kind of require information from all different areas. So this could be from whether you've had a BNG assessment, your baseline reports from your ecologist. It could be from planning documents and various maps. This is what kind of pulls it all together. So as I said, I'll not go through every single question, but I'll just kind of jump to the ones where I think it's helpful to have a little bit more of an explanation. So let's go with 4.3. So kind of how have you met the guidance on what counts towards your BNG? So this is just a short description. And if you're unsure as to kind of what does count towards it, you can obviously click on this link and have a little read. So this is just trying to kind of get an understanding of how you've approached the development, what you've planned to do on site, just to kind of, get that summary really. And then 4.4 is, again, a short description as to how you're looking to avoid or minimise the impacts to habitats on site. We've then got some simple questions here, kind of how you'll achieve. So whether this is all on site, off site, or possibly a combination of both. Another question that kind of does sometimes stump people a little is 4.7. So in terms of those on-site enhancements and whether they're considered to be significant. Again, you've got a link to an article that can help you understand what is classed as significant. And the reason that this is being asked, obviously they'll want to understand in the next question about those significant on-site enhancements. But equally, if you're doing on-site enhancements or creation that's classed as significant, you will need a HMMP. So this is asked further down. So as with habitat banks, if you're doing something, as I said, significant, you will need an on-site habitat management and monitoring plan, because this will then detail how you're going to look after those significant enhancements for the next 30 years. So that's why this is quite important, because then if you are doing significant enhancements, you do need to make sure that you have a HMMP, because this does get asked a little further down in this document. I think it's 4.12, there we go. So then just going back to these other questions, if you've got on-site enhancements, obviously that's that section. If you need to buy off-site units, it wants you to just state how many units you require in order to meet the 10% net gain, but also include a description as to why you're using off-site units. Sometimes the 10% can't be met on site. So if a development includes housing with lots of private gardens, that obviously limits what can be done within the public spaces that count towards the net gain. So if that can't be all done within the development itself, you'll have to look to buy offsite. So they just want an understanding of, kind of the thought process and why you've had to use offsite units. Same again for statutory credits. Obviously, I've not known anyone to use these as yet, but again, an explanation as to why you would use the statutory credits for your development. This is the habitat management and monitoring plan that we discussed earlier. And then this is a bit more simple. So have you used the statutory biodiversity metric tool? So obviously I think we're all becoming a lot more familiar with that. So you would click yes. You would then, for all these different sections, you would just include the file name, and then you would need to submit those files alongside this when you submit it to the LPA. So you'd want your metric in there, your condition assessments, all the relevant information gets linked in here. And then again, a small section about irreplaceable habitats. That should be fairly simple to fill in. And then section 6, on-site habitat enhancement. So this is going to pull information. It's obviously a survey date and survey constraints. So whether there's anything that was impacting the survey, but then the majority of section 6, this will all get pulled from your biodiversity metric. So on the headline results tab, there is the on-site section, and you can then pull the information through into these different areas. And then very similar really for section 7. So section 7 is purely for if you are having to purchase off-site units. So this would give a little bit of information, say that you're purchasing the units from a registered supplier. You need to enter the Gain site register number for the person that you're, or the company that you're buying units from, how they've secured their site, so whether that's a section 106 through their LPA or a conservation covenant through a responsible body. And then again, all this information here would be pulled from your completed metric. So when you've purchased offsite units, the Habitat Bank will have to add their units in the offsite tabs to that metric. And then once they've done that, you can then pull the information from the headline results tab about the offsite baseline and units and how this impacts your requirements. Then section 8 is purely statutory biodiversity credits. So I think for most people, this will be not applicable. So if that's the case, you just tick no, and then you can skip on to the final part. So that section 9 is the trading summary. So this is quite a short description, but it just wants you to understand how you've met your requirements. So for example, if you had a loss of medium distinctiveness, other neutral grassland, and you've replaced it with medium distinctiveness, other neutral grassland, you can say in medium, trading rules have been met, ONG was offset with ONG. There may be instances within the trading rules where you need to trade up. So if the ONG, actually, let's use a different example. If you had a loss of medium distinctiveness individual trees, and you couldn't replace like for like, you may have used a habitat bank that has then actually provided you a high distinctiveness unit type in order to offset those trees. So again, in here, you can kind of just give that explanation as to how you've offset those units and how you've met the trading rules, essentially. And then the very final question, which is optional, is just whether or not you want to share your data. So that is a bit of a brief overview of the Biodiversity Gain Plan. And it's an essential document. So, you know, it's something that I think everyone will get more and more familiar with. But if you'd like any support in preparing that or reviewing a Biodiversity Gain Plan, do feel free to get in touch with us. Hope you found that useful. Thank you.